this experiment, you will need a test tube rack. You will also need a large test tube as well as a micro test tube. You will need a 10 ml measuring cylinder. You will also need a stirring rod. You will need a stopwatch. You will also need a piece of magnesium that is approximately 2 centimeters long. You will also need some sandpaper to clean off the magnesium, and you will need a permanent marker. We're working with acid, so you'll need gloves and a lab coat. You will also need goggles. You should also do your work on a heat-proof mat. The first thing you need to do is you need to make a 2 ml line on your microtube. To do that, you will use your measuring cylinder and you will put 2 ml of water into it. Then tip that into the microtube. And mark the line with a permanent marker. That water can then be discarded. You don't need it anymore. You need a clean piece of magnesium. This piece is dirty, so we'll use sandpaper to get it shiny on both sides. Make sure you do the sanding on the heat-proof mat to collect all of the dust that comes off of it. Magnesium has sharp edges. Be careful that you don't accidentally scrape yourself with that. So you can see that the magnesium is nice and shiny now. Okay, that magnesium needs to get bent into a V shape so that we can wedge it into the top of our tube later. The 2 ml line on your tube is where we will fill with acid and also where we will time for the collection of hydrogen. So fill your tube up to the line. And then you need to carefully top it up with water until you're about 1 centimeter from the top. Run the water down the edge of the tube. You can see we've got this gap at the top. Take your piece of magnesium and sit it in the top of the tube. Push it in, trying not to drop it. And you might need to bend it a little bit more. Fill it all the way up with water. It might start to fizz at this stage, and that's okay. Now for some coordination. Take your large tube and sit it over the top of this tube. Carefully pick it up, and then you're going to use a stirring rod to push that tube all the way in to the top. You then need to invert the tube and start the timer at the same time. So flip the tube over. Sit it in a test tube rack. And we're going to time how long it takes for the gas bubble to get down to the line. You will be able to see that the hydrogen is fizzing from the magnesium. You can see those bubbles being produced, and we're waiting until we get the air bubble at the top here down to that black line. The reaction will keep fizzing once the gas has reached that point, but you can leave the test tube to run while you do the rest of your experiments. When you are done, you will need a waste beaker. And we will tip the contents into that. It's really important that you sand the magnesium to clean off anything that will stop it from reacting. So you can see that this one is almost done. we are going to assume that it's done for now so that I can show you the cleanup procedure. So when you're finished, pick up your tube and then carefully tip it into your waste beaker. Slowly, the other mini tube will fall out. And then you need to empty the mini tube into the waste beaker. If the magnesium gets stuck, then use your stirring rod. So you can see the magnesium is still in mine. Use the stirring rod to flick it out. You will need to repeat this 3 times for each of the acids that you want to use. When you are done, gloves away, or dirty glassware in the glassware container, and record your results.